everybody, it's Josh with Talk About Trek, and the Month of Honor continues on. And we finished up yesterday, Day of Honor, Book 5. Day of Honor. So, Day of Honor is, of course, the novelization of the Voyager episode, Day of Honor. And one interesting thing that I found out in reading this whole big saga here, it was that, I found out in here, this television episode was written because they were doing the book series. So, kind of an interesting little tie-in there. But if you've seen the episode, then you're going to be kind of familiar with the story and what goes on. But of course, when you have a novelization of that, it's going to fill out those little details for you that you didn't get to see. You're going to learn more about the little side characters that kind of came and went. And of course, they do have to pad it out as well with just a little bit more, to make it a little bit longer. So, from the back cover here. B'Elanna Torres and Tom Paris put their lives on the line to save the Starship Voyager. But with time running out, Torres has only one last chance to reveal the true feelings she has buried for years. Alright, so we'll just kind of jump right into the book. And again, if you've seen the episode, you know what happens. But this does, like I said, it fleshes it out quite a bit more. So the book starts out actually with kind of a prologue showing the assimilation of these species called the Kitati, I believe. And they have this one in particular whose name is Raham. And they show when the Borg first arrive on his planet and the assimilation of his wife and daughter. And then he gets knocked out cold and kind of it starts it out right there. The story also gives some more background on B'Elanna. You have a couple of little chapters there where showing her as a kid, the relationship between her and her parents and what happened and how her dad left and all that. So it does fill out some of that backstory as well too, which is good. So now really this book, even though it's included in the Day of Honor saga, it's almost kind of a 50-50 split in my mind between being a Seven story and a B'Elanna story. At least in the book, I would say. I mean, in the show, they had to focus more on one than the other, but in the book here, they do give more additional focus to Seven. And what's good about this episode, I guess, that I liked, and then the book, how they flesh it out, is it's like her taking her first steps towards humanity, towards becoming, part of the crew for real. This is where she requests her first duty assignment, and then she gets assigned to engineering, where most of the trouble begins. Now, before that happens, the Voyager does meet up with this kind of ragtag group of Kititi that are in a very beat-up ship and are requesting whatever aid Voyager can offer them. Voyager's able to hook them up with thorium particles, which power all of their equipment, plenty of food and plenty of other things, and able to send them on their way in a much better state than they were before. Now, these Kititi run across another group, which includes this Raham. And they find out about Voyager and all of its supplies and everything that it has, and decide to come and find it themselves. So, they're on their way. Back on Voyager, Seven is in engineering, helping B'Elanna test out a transwarp conduit, hoping that Voyager can use that to get home much faster. So they begin their experiment, and it does not go as planned. There's a problem with the warp core. They have to eject the core, which is the worst thing an engineer would have to do. So I didn't get into it much, but the other thing they flesh out in here is they really kind of go into how bad B'Elanna's day is. One of the themes of this is that she always has a terrible Day of Honor. Always bad luck on her Day of Honor. So they go into detail about all the things that have happened so far in this Day of Honor to her, and this is just like the icing on the cake. Now she's had to eject the warp core, so her and Tom are sent to retrieve it. Oh, I also didn't cover that they do flesh out more of the Day of Honor ceremony stuff, where they kind of talk initially to Tom and B'Elanna, like set up this program where she can get in touch with her Klingon roots and really get in there and learn more about the Day of Honor. And Tom helps her set it up, and he goes through and like does extra work to try to make it as authentic and as good of an experience for her as he can. She tries to go through with it and is just not getting into it and kind of walks out. So she doesn't really want to go through with it at all. So not a lot of Day of Honor in Day of Honor. But it's really about a lot of other things as well. So it kind of glosses over all of that. But the book at least kind of shows more than what happened in the episode there. I did watch the episode right after I finished the book, which was awesome. Because I was able to kind of just right in my head fill in all those missing pieces there. So Tom and B'Elanna are sent to retrieve the warp core in a shuttle. Of course, when they leave, that's when Voyager is surrounded by, or when they get to the warp core, they find that it's being already scavenged by Raham and his group of Katati. They send a pulse back at the shuttlecraft, which causes the shuttlecraft to lose its structural integrity, and Tom and B'Elanna have to quickly throw on their EV suits and beam themselves out into space. I always liked this episode for that, and I liked this book really kind of fleshed that out too. Just their whole experience of being out in space, floating out there with nothing, and they did a really, really good job, I think, of kind of expressing that story out more. So now, like I said, they do have to add some kind of things to these books to fill them out a little bit more, which they did here. And they gave the Doctor a whole kind of weird B story of him trying to find a holiday that he can celebrate and kind of have for his own. So he goes and he samples various different holidays and things, but none of them really seem to work out for him. He tries kind of like almost like an alien running of the bowls thing. I think he goes to like a Yom Kippur ceremony and just tries a few different holidays to try to find something to fit him. But nothing really works for him. But in the end, Captain Janeway does help out. So we'll get to that. But so you have Tom and B'Elanna out floating in space. And this is where you get to the point in the story where B'Elanna starts kind of admitting her feelings more, and I think maybe she's doing that because she's convinced that she's going to die and probably wouldn't even do it otherwise. She's so stubborn. But her and Tom kind of have a heart-to-heart there. Back on the Voyager, which is without power, the impulse engines are not even back up yet, is now surrounded by this fleet of Katati ships, which are, even though they're kind of in disrepair and smaller, when you have 30 versus 1, they could still do some damage. So Janeway tries to find a way to negotiate with them. And this is where Seven comes up with the brilliant idea of giving them a Thorian matrix. And it's something that she knew how to do, which I guess this race knew how to do but lost the ability to do when they were assimilated. But the point they make in here is that it's the change in her way of thinking, where she's, instead of assimilating technology, she's offering it to people, which is just something that she was not used to doing, which is why she only did it just now. So it's kind of the perfect solution for the problem. By giving them this matrix where they can create these thorian particles, then they can make more matrices and more thorian particles, and then they can kind of rebuild their fleet and their people and their crew. And this works out pretty good for Raham. And Raham initially was wanting food, thorium particles, and also Seven's head on a platter, basically. He wanted to take her prisoner and then do who knows what awful things to her, kind of in vengeance for his family and his people. Of course, when he brings that up, Seven is like, okay, I'll turn myself over, and Janeway's like, no, we're not going to do that, of course. But it was another kind of interesting thing too, just to see like the switch there in this book, and I guess I'm talking more about the episode now too, of just Seven going from this Borg towards being more a part of the crew. I really like Seven, and I think she was probably my favorite part of Voyager, and one of the main reasons I'm looking towards Picard Season 3, because I'm hoping that that's going to be a jumping off point for her into a new series. So fingers crossed on that. Captain 7 or something. So Anyway, I'm getting distracted. We're talking about the Day of Honor series. So they're able to get their impulse engines back online, make the deal with the Katati, and warp or impulse power over to Tom and B'Elanna just before their oxygen reserves go down. So, and right at the end, before they die, or before she thinks she's going to die, B'Elanna confesses that she does indeed love Tom Paris. Aw. So that's kind of the start of their relationship as well. So, a really good book. Well, it's a novelization of an episode, so it is fun, but it's kind of like short and sweet. You know, it's kind of like fluff. You already know what you're getting into, but again, if you enjoy that episode, then you're definitely going to want to read this, because this is, you know, fleshing that all out. If you're a fan of B'Elanna, I mean, of course, you're going to want to read this, and the Seven stuff in it is really good. The doctor side story in it was a little bit strange, but in the end, the captain kind of gives the doctor a great idea for what his holiday should be, which is basically his holiday is whenever he heals people, because he's part of a community of doctors. So kind of a weird ending to that, but I think the author said something like they just wanted something light to kind of set off the darkness of B'Elanna's story and everything that was going on with Seven and that. So, yeah. Interesting, but short. And as you can see, we are right here in the very end of the Day of Honor saga. And I'm pretty happy to have pulled the whole thing off here in the month of January, the month of honor. So, good deal there. I think what I'm getting into next here is a young adult novel. There are actually illustrations, as you can see. So that will also be another short and sweet read, and I'll probably be back in a couple days to tell you all about Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Honor Bound, by Diana G. Gallagher. And then after we're done with the Day of Honor saga, where do we go for February? We don't know yet. But my eyes keep drifting toward Riansu. So that may be a possibility, just because maybe I want another big saga to push through the awful, terrible month of February and get into something a little bit better. So, yeah. So, again, it was a fun book, short and sweet, a fun episode. Read the book and watch the episode. Watch the episode, then read the book. I don't know. Do something like that. It's fun. As always, everybody, thank you so much for watching. I want to wish you glory to your house. And kapla.